Welcome to the ICPU Media channel. In this first video in our series on child abuse and other criminal cases in South Africa, we will look at the case of the Springs Monster, also known as the Springs House of Horrors. This video is a personal description of the Springs House of Horrors by the ICPU's founder and CEO, who was a forensic nurse at the time and examined all of the siblings and the mother within days of the children's rescue from the terrible home. She also testified in the case and played an important part in protecting the children and ensuring that the criminals were held accountable. Our account begins in May 2014. The scene is a regular neighborhood in Springs, Gauteng, South Africa. The house, later dubbed the House of Horrors, appeared to be a typical two-story dwelling. Many neighbors will later admit that they were unaware that there were even youngsters in the house. This was until an 11-year-old boy ran from the house clothed only in shorts. The boy ascended a high brick wall between the house and the neighbor's house, leaving bleeding scrapes on his exposed stomach. The boy's face and body were bruised and bleeding and asked the neighbors to protect him from his father after being violently assaulted by him. The boy's 36-year-old father found the boy at the neighbor's house and forcibly removed the boy and took him to a family member in Warden in KwaZulu-Natal, 198 kilometers away, to hide him from the authorities. The neighbors immediately contacted the authorities, putting a stop to years of alleged abuse and suffering suffered by the 5 siblings at the hands of their father, while their mother, also 36, did nothing to protect them. Members of the South African Police Services went to the residence in search of the boy. They used sniffer dogs to search inside and outside of the house, but could not locate him. The mother eventually told the police where the boy was in Warden. The boy was swiftly removed from the house in Warden and taken to safety with his siblings. Exactly 1 year after the father's arrest, the formal trial commenced. The trial started in May 2016 in the North Gauteng High Court and lasted until October 2018. During the subsequent trial, the true horrors, the boy of 11 years and his 4 siblings aged 2, 4, 5 and 16 endured, were revealed. These horrors shocked the world. The father faced 22 charges ranging from neglect, abuse, rape, sexual assault, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, breaking the School Act, exposing children to pornography, as well as using and distributing drugs. A forensic expert testified that the abuse the children and wife suffered at the hands of the father were equivalent to torture. The mother was soon arrested as well. Although she suffered abuse as well, she remained loyal to her husband and initially refused to testify on behalf of her children. She faced 20 charges. She was however released on bail whilst her husband remained behind bars. A forensic criminologist testified that the mother had symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and Stockholm syndrome. The daughter, 16 and the boy of 11, testified in camera against their father and mother. These are their depictions of their lives for many years, behind the high walls of their 2-story home. The 5 siblings were imprisoned, with no access to the outside world, while their cruel parents neglected and abused them for many years. The children were not allowed to attend school, and the only education they received during these years of seclusion came from the older 16-year-old daughter, who had to become the primary carer for the siblings despite having no formal education for many years. Inside the rat-infested house with minimal furnishings, the father directed all of his aggression at the older siblings. The boy of 11 years endured the most atrocious torture. Often the boy will be strung for up to 2 days, between 2 pillars, leaving deep scars around his ankles and wrists caused by a rope. He was not allowed to come down even to eat or urinate, and was punished further for urinating on himself. When he pleaded to be set free, his father allegedly used pepper spray on him. He was beaten with a cane and struck in the head with a chair, leaving deep gashes, which had to heal by itself with no medical intervention or stitches. The children were also beaten with PVC pipes. The father once dragged the 4-year-old child down the stairs by her feet, resulting in head injuries. The children were sleeping on a single mattress with no linen, and investigators discovered blood smears on it. The residence was sparsely furnished, and rats and rat droppings were found throughout. In one of the rooms, a closet full of sex toys and pornographic videos was discovered. The children, especially the eldest daughter, was regularly exposed to these pornographic material. In his testimony, the eldest boy described how his father once threw him in the air, and how he landed with his head on a heater. He was bleeding severely, and was not sent to the hospital for sutures. The children testified that their father would use a blowtorch to burn them, and a cattle prod to shock them. The father also sexually abused his oldest daughter, also forcing her to use and sell narcotics. Women would regularly be coming to the house, who had sexual encounters with the father and mother. The mother was frequently found passed out on crystal meth, and the oldest daughter had to raise her siblings on noodles, bread and fries, which the father will sometimes bring home. The father would also regularly use pepper spray in the children's faces. Just before the 11-year-old boy escaped, the father pinned him down and relentlessly beat him in the face before attempting to drown him in the pool. The CEO of the Independent Child Protection Unit testified as a forensic nurse about the children's injuries and corroborated the methods of torture used by the father and mother. The trial ultimately lasted 29 months. Throughout the trial, the mother argued that she was also a victim of the father's abuse, and her lawyers attempted to demonstrate that she suffers from PTSD and battered woman syndrome. The father was found guilty and received a 35-year effective sentence. The mother was found guilty on 5 counts of child neglect, drug possession, obstruction of justice, and defeating the ends of justice, and received a 5-year suspended sentence. Although the court described the father as a psychopath and sadist, he insisted that his own dysfunctional childhood and intellectual disabilities was the reason he treated his family in the manner he did. What happened to the children? The eldest daughter was adopted and finished school, and became a public speaker, and author a biography of her life in the Springs House of Horrors. The eldest son was adopted and is currently working on a book about his time at the Springs House of Horrors. The 3 younger siblings were placed in a children's home from where the girls were eventually adopted. The youngest sibling is still in the children's home by the time this video was produced.
The ICPU's evaluation of the Springs Monster case. The Springs Monster case is one of South Africa's few success stories in terms of the child protection system's handling of the case. This case exemplifies how the South African child protection system has the potential to handle every case of child abuse through cross-sectoral cooperation and high-quality investigations. However, the ICPU expressed concern about the lengthy time it took to resolve the situation, putting the children in limbo and unable to move on from their trauma.